Off to work we go, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Kelly and Company, and on today's program, Matisse Hamel-Nelis has details on Durham College's IDEA-centric new program integrating inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility. Always love to hear that, of course. And this is being brought into the foundation of modern PR education. And they say dog is man's best friend, but what about the horse? And Caine from the Canadian Therapeutic Riding Association shares the 45 years of experience the organization has and the benefits of equine assisted therapy. Let's go! Giddy up!
This is Kelly and Company.
Kelly MacDonald here, welcoming you wherever you are checking us out around the world via the podcast. You can subscribe to the Kelly and Company podcast at your leisure. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube page and follow the show. We have the full version up there. We have segments. We have extras up there, such as the vanity cards. No matter how you consume the show, we appreciate it. Always love to hear from you. We'll talk to you about that later on in the show and some other ways you can be involved here with AMI. What's the truth about heart disease? Registered Nurse Travis Nightingale is back to give us some of the answers, because February is Heart Health Month in Canada. Travis, welcome back. How are you?
Good, Kelly. How you doing?
All right. My goodness. Lots to talk about today with this topic, and really important. Thank you for bringing it to us. So what's the truth about heart disease?
So heart disease is a umbrella, kind of a blanket term for numerous things that happen in the heart. And it's really cardiovascular disease. So you think it also includes your blood vessels and everything. So your heart arrhythmias, heart attack, plaque buildup, stiffening of the arteries, all of those things contribute to our heart health. And it is the number one killer in Canada, globally actually as well. It's the number one killer because of all those umbrella things that fall under it. And the truth really is that it is not an old man disease. So just because you're not 60 or 70 doesn't mean you're not already contributing to cardiovascular disease. And so the key really is being aware of that early on, because chances are when you're in your 30s and 40s, you're doing the damage that you're going to find out in your 50s and 60s. You just don't see it right away. So it takes a while to build those things up and to really see the effects. And that's why I think people, it doesn't have an immediate response. So it's kind of easy to do the wrong thing for a little while. 20 years later, you can't necessarily undo the damage.
It's hard to believe when you think about how we do so many things, and no matter what somebody tells you, whether you smoked, whether you just take chances doing different things with what you eat, or like thrill seeking in the sports that you may play and the damages to your back or body, it's so funny how we can say at 18 years old, you got to think ahead, drink more water, do this or do that, don't do this, don't do that. And that lasts until all of a sudden, did you used to? Yep. And you start wondering. Let's talk about the misconceptions that so many of us might be under, such as what we just mentioned.
There are a lot, and it's hard to navigate. And as we know, science is always changing and really hard to stay ahead of it. What the biggest misconception probably is that, if you're young, you don't have to worry about it. Like I'm 37. I'm really probably, if I'm being really unhealthy, eating poorly, not exercising appropriately, smoking, constantly stressed, I'd be doing damage to my heart now that I'm going to find out, 10, 15 years later. And cardiovascular disease does affect women as well, only at a later age. So men by the age of 45 to 54 are 4 times as likely to have a heart attack than a woman. But by the time that woman hits menopause, the gap starts closing. And after about 70 years old, men and women are equal risk factor for cardiovascular disease. And
so are we talking in that age? Like when you say that age, that's 45 to... Wow.
Well, 4 times as likely, just because you're a man.
Okay.
Part of it is because of testosterone and stuff that contributes to elevated cholesterol. Certain lifestyle behavior, men are typically, they don't care for themselves as well, especially at that age. And women after menopause, because it's a drop in estrogen, then they start developing the same risk, so that by about 7 years old, the risk is equal for men and women. But the signs don't present the same way for a man or a woman, let's say having a heart attack. So a man is going to get that classic, chest pain, shoulder pain, pain in the jaw, trouble breathing, sweaty, short of breath. That's very common for men. Women can be incredibly subtle. Sometimes it's just fatigue. Sometimes it's just nausea. So they don't always present with the same classic heart attack symptoms. I actually remember one time in the emergency department, I was still quite new, and it was an experienced nurse that caught this, but a lady came in and she just had tooth pain. And that was the thing, like her teeth hurt, her jaw, her teeth. So they actually sent her for a chest x-ray, did an ECG, and found out that she was having a heart attack. But it was very subtle because she doesn't come in looking like she's having a heart attack. So women can fly under the radar very easily.
I know we've had people on the program and talked about, for women, how this is such a problem, how men take center stage, as you've mentioned, the 4 times more likely, all the things that present so prominently and more silent with females. Does that extend even to, the care as time goes on? Do we tend to, I don't want to say take it more serious with a male, but become more aggressive than when we discover a female has had an incident? Is there a difference?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think women, and I'm sure most of our female listeners could attest to this, are not taken as seriously when it comes to health concerns. Women in the past have been treated very poorly. If you want to, have an abortion, back in the day, the husband needs to sign off on it. Or if you want to be on birth control, the husband needs to be okay with it. Women very quickly get dismissed for a lot of the symptoms that they have, that, it's your period, or it's hysteria, it's anxiety. And they do get dismissed a lot for and underdiagnosed, because you're right, men take center stage in the diagnostics, and the women, it's still this old culture of, they're complaining or they're whining, and it's not the case. And oftentimes, you're right, these things do get missed because it's subtle and women aren't taken as seriously when it comes to their health.
Travis, what would we say would be the biggest contributors? I mean, we hear about sedentary jobs, people sitting so much, how deadly that is. And I always feel, and I don't want to fall into the trap that you just said don't fall into, thinking that's those people in their 40s, late 40s, 50s, who have that job where they've been sitting, whether it's new to them to be sitting or have been for 20 years. What are some of the things we should look at or try at least to do, whether our job enables us to or our circumstance?
Yeah, one thing, a nice marker to hit. You hear a lot of people talk about steps right now, where they say you should take 10,000 steps in a day. A good marker is 150 minutes per week of moderate exercise. It's good for the heart. It helps lose body fat, which helps take strain off of the heart. It lowers blood sugar. You're using up those carbohydrates. You become less sensitive to insulin. So exercise, incredibly important to be at a healthy weight. Diabetes is bad, smoking's bad, excessive alcohol is bad. All of those things are bad. But when we have this sedentary lifestyle, it's part of the routine to, you got to rush to work, so you're going to eat something quickly, and you buy it from Tim Hortons or whatever, and then it's lunchtime, you're going to eat something quick, and then you go sit at the desk. We're not taking that time to care for ourselves. And in your 30s and 40s, you're like, that's okay. I put on a bit of weight, I'll lose it next year. 20 years down the road, you're in the same rut. You haven't done yourself any favor yet. And it's so hard for us to invest in our bodies and make it a priority, like any other asset, that you need to start doing something about it now and taking care of yourself now, not counting on, I'll do it later. Somebody
sitting listening who may be 56, 60 years old, thinking about that 150 minutes a week. What do we classify as moderate? I know a lot of time, if you're in an office situation, if you're working from home, so many people are, you get up and walk. You may get up after you eat some food, your lunch or whatever, go for a walk around the block, or whatever it might work. But can we talk about, the moderate, what that might consist of if someone says, I do want to try 3 or 4 times a week, making sure I'm getting those minutes in, or those little things we can do, such as every hour walking around?
I know some people who have desk jobs, we'll have little reminders, for every 30 minutes, just get up and move for 5 minutes, which is nice. That adds up throughout the day. Going for a little 10, 20-minute walk, incredible, like to just do that daily. If you go from walking 0 steps a day, other than what you have to do for work, and you're adding just that little bit of exercise, 10 minutes a day is not too hard for someone to find. 20 minutes is not too hard for someone to find. And that adds up week after week, year after year. That adds up. So moderate exercise is usually considered getting your heart rate between 120 and 130. So you'd usually still be able to have a conversation at that pace. You might be a little out of breath, but you're not like panting, you can't speak. So, you go for a walk and you can kind of still chit chat and everything. That's probably a good range for somebody starting out, especially if they feel they do have health concerns. They're not super fit. It's a good place to start, to just do something, just get moving a bit. Anything
else, whether it's the discussion with our doctors or beyond a symptom. If you start thinking, hey, this is going on, obviously we know this is serious, call 911. It's better to let them deal with you and say, oh, no, that wasn't a heart attack. Or let's go and take a look at whatever one of the many things that could be happening. You talk vessels, that can happen at any age, something be off or funny.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And people can have genetic abnormalities that you're not aware of. I've had 30-year-olds having heart attacks, and it makes no sense. They look fit, they look healthy. You can have, genetic anomalies that you aren't aware of. But it's an insidious little thing that you can have this ticking time bomb inside of you and not really know. So, no, it is scary. Talking to your doctor is important as you age and trying to negotiate these risk factors. But I'm notoriously a down player. Like if people are panicking, I'm always like, no, we don't need to panic. This is okay. But I will say, every single time, if it's chest pain, I don't take any chances. I will rather overreact with a chest pain than underreact. So if you're concerned, you're having tightness in the chest, you're having difficulty breathing, or it feels like people say it feels like an elephant sitting on my chest.
Yes.
That is the one thing that I say, do not hesitate, go to the emergency department, because you do never know.
And I think it's just safe than sorry. Like, that's what we put our money out for, our taxes and safety. And I know a lot of time there's some embarrassment that we have. Hey, good heavens, I overreacted. And I think we have to remind ourselves, better to overreact than not have the chance to overreact again down the road.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chest pain, I always say that's that one thing that I know in the last segment we were talking about cold and flu and to not panic and when to not overdo it. That's right. Chest pain, I always say no question. If you're concerned, go to the emergency department. There's no other way to know.
Anything in closing that you want to throw out there for people, whether it's keeping ourselves healthy, that reminder to the younger people or anyone right now who is sitting there listening saying, yeah, that's me, I'm not walking enough?
I think there's two things. It's never too late to start. So if you're in your 60s, you've been sedentary your whole life, and you're like, oh, it's too late for me, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, just get up and walk. Maybe you enjoy it. Maybe you don't. Just force yourself to do it. And this is what I'm saying. We don't invest and just because it's uncomfortable, you don't have the time, you don't want to do it, doesn't mean you don't do it, because it is so important, especially down the road. And then that's speaking to the younger person who's probably about my age, who's, oh, I'm young, so I'm still okay. If you can start doing that damage now, and 20 years down the road, it's too late to undo it. So always got to be cautious.
We'll look forward to our next talk with you, as February has a lot more to do, folks, with our heart than just, the Valentine's Day stuff going on. Our registered nurse, Travis Nightingale, joining us on the program. I have something interesting that came my way, and I'm kind of curious, Travis, if we could talk a little bit about what we have considered over the years, 6 bad foods that we call them bad, but maybe we should be eating them. Now, this is from Eating Well Design. So this was found. Certain foods for years have been labeled bad for heart health, often due to outdated nutrition myths that are out there or misleading advice from, oh my goodness, I've never heard of this, from social media. However, research and experts reveal that many of these foods offer some health benefits, and I'm kind of curious if maybe some of these that may even help the heart, you might have some thoughts on. Eggs, for example, have always been treated like a villain. However, the body of research seems to indicate that dietary cholesterol found in the body in food has a little less to do with the blood cholesterol than previously thought in reality, because eggs are an excellent source of complete protein and nutrients, with of course supports the heart and brain health. Your thoughts, especially if we eat the whole egg, by the way?
I am a big egg lover. I'll go and I'll say that. But I do agree. There's a lot of conjectures, a lot of confusion with foods, and it's changing so much. And I mean, we used to put cocaine in Coca-Cola, and
right.
Cigarettes used to be, they're healthy, they're good for you, and so things do change. And eggs is one of them. Dietary cholesterol has next to no influence on your actual serum cholesterol. So yes, eggs are always bad because they're high in cholesterol, but eating a high cholesterol food does not necessarily mean it is going to increase your serum, your blood cholesterol level.
I'm a fan of old-time radio shows from the 40s and 50s where they often are sponsored by cigarette companies, and they'll even use doctors, right? Yes, like Camels, and they'll say 9 out of 10 doctors smoke Camel cigarettes. Yeah. Wow. Next on the list, full-fat dairy products like yogurt and milk have also been criticized for their saturated fats, but new research says they can be part of a health a heart healthy diet, excuse me. And this came from a 2023 review that felt that full fat dairy consumption was not associated with any increased heart disease. It may even have some protected effects due to its unique nutrient profile. So I'm kind of curious what you feel about that one.
I grew up on whole fat milk. Growing up in Manitoba, that 3% milk was always a part of a staple in the diet. So and that's correct. Yes. So full fats do contain omega-3 and omega-6. Some non-full fat milks do have omega-3 and omega-6 as additives to it, which do have good heart protecting benefits. So just the word fat by itself does not mean bad. And we're all stuck in that. And it's a very, very common thing. But yes, you do need fat in your body. You do need it for hormone transport. You need it for all sorts of regulation in your body. It is a necessary part of the diet.
Now, remember this next one out of probably the 80s and 90s. Shellfish, such as shrimp, mussels, lobster, and oysters, are often avoided due to the cholesterol content, but they're actually rich in heart-healthy omega-3s and other fatty acids that we need, and low in saturated fats, making them a very nutritious choice for cardiovascular health. Thoughts on that one? Is that pretty straightforward?
Very straightforward. Well, same sort of thing as the milk. Yeah, fish typically do have good fatty acids in them that are seen as heart protecting with the omega-3, omega-6 fatty acids. They do good things for regulating cholesterol. They can actually help regulate blood pressure. Shellfish is great. I love shellfish.
It's plastic and metal we have to worry about now with the fish, right?
Yeah. So
all that stuff.
The old mercury thing. Yeah.
Yes. So here's my favorite. You and I. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, here's my favorite one, best friend, coffee. Again, one of those ones that we go back and forth on. I think in my lifetime I have heard don't drink too much of it outside of the stuff we put in it. Caffeine is often been controversial for raising blood pressure, but moderate coffee consumption, around 2 to 3 a day, has been linked to heart health benefits. These benefits potentially may have something to do with the antioxidants found in the coffee, which can also bring down inflammation and support blood vessel function. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I've heard that as well. I've also heard for men, black coffee is good for the prostate as well. I believe that's also because of the antioxidants that are found in it. Coffee is not bad on its own. If you're having too much that you're shaking out of your chair, probably not a great idea. But a lot of the issues are the additives. You go to Starbucks, you're looking, sometimes you get a venti and it's like 500 calories that are in there because of all the creams and all the sugar and all the, it adds up really quick when you look at all the other stuff. But coffee itself, not so bad for you. And if you keep the consumption of your caffeine below 500 milligrams a day, is typically seen as tolerable for adults.
What about the tummy? I mean, a lot of people will say you have to take something, a probiotic or something, because of the acid. That would sometimes get to some people, especially the longtime coffee drinkers, I'm assuming.
Yeah, volume, and sometimes on an empty stomach, it upsets you a little bit more too. But I mean, some people, as part of their morning routine, you drink that coffee in the morning and it keeps you regular. So it is a trade-off for sure.
Okay. Potatoes. This is a hard one for me. I'm not a big potato fan. They often get criticized, but they're actually a nutrient-packed vegetable loaded with fiber, energizing carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates, vitamin C, and potassium, which plays a key role in regulating blood pressure. Now, it's also recommended to boil or bake them, not fry them, and, of course, keep the skin on them.
Mm-hmm. And not have a pound of butter and sour cream on it either. But no, potatoes are actually, they're great. They're a great vegetable. They're such a hearty source of nutrients, great for carbohydrates, and it is the most satiating product on the planet. Pound for pound, the most satiating thing that we can eat is potatoes, and they're easy to grow, they're abundant, and they go a long way. I mean, there's a reason why people just live off of potatoes and famine. They're cheap, and they go a long way, and they're actually great for you.
Fantastic. Wow, what an endorsement. Mm-hmm. And I think, Travis, that's one that we've heard forever. This is one that hasn't really wavered that much, but it's just the whole stop with the sour cream. Come on, guys. Or the fact that so many of us just like them fried or disguised as a French fry, says Kelly.
French fry.
Now, the favorite one, chocolate. This is another one that's seen as a bad food that you should avoid for better health. However, dark chocolate with a high cocoa content, usually 70% cocoa or more, can actually be a healthy food choice in moderation. You say?
Yes. We love chocolate. So I remember constantly seeing these things come out. Usually around Valentine's Day, they're like, it is actually good for the heart. Higher cocoa, you want to stick that dark chocolate less into the milk chocolates where they just dilute the good cocoa with milk and sugar.
Yes.
But chocolate is great. I remember my mom hearing that when I was young, that, hey, chocolate's actually good for you. And sometimes we just need to, even if it weren't, we can just convince ourselves every once in a while, a little bite of chocolate, a little bit here, it's not going to kill you. Moderation is key.
My mother would laugh when she'd be baking with the dark chocolate, and I'd come along, and she'd say, "You don't want that." "Oh, yeah, I don't mind, Mom." Oh, and she loved the sour face that I would give up. Travis Nightingale, thank you very much.
Pleasure as always, Kelly. Take care.
We'll talk to you next month. Our registered nurse joining us on the program here today on Kelly and Company. A little note, folks, we're looking for members of the disability community to join our AMI research panel. Our research panel guides us with every decision that we make here at AMI, including programming, of course, media consumption, and accessibility. Participants are compensated for all long-form studies that they may wish to join and be a part of. For more information, and if you wish to join, go to ami.ca/panel. We'd love to have you. So sign up as soon as you can. We're seeing how many more people we can get in there, and love to put you to work helping us be guided into what AMI's future is. You can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. Now, there's lots of content popping out there to support the show, to remind you where we are so that you can go join and follow along on our YouTube page, or, of course, out there, the podcast itself. So, again, on Instagram and Twitter at Kelly & Co. AMI. We love when education practices what it preaches. Matisse Hamel-Nelis joins us now on the program, and Matisse is the program coordinator for Durham College's PR Graduate Certificate. Now, I want to learn a little bit about this program and find out how the new program is IDEA-centric, integrating inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility into the foundation of modern PR education. Matisse, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Hanging in here with the mouthful I just read. I'm quite excited for you to sit back and fill us in, but we love it. I mean, when I went to college, it felt like I had to educate my profs when you went in that day before actually classes started and you met people and things like that. So on top of learning your way around, on top of learning your schedule, getting your books and everything in order, for those of us with a disability, I know for me, I often felt like I had to stop and try to explain how the teacher would teach me in their class after I had done so much research through the summer as to what would be entailed in each individual course I had to take so that I could put them at ease.
Yeah.
Real tough to do and a little hard on us. So would you give us the scoop here? What's this program? Why is it so exciting?
For sure. So this is the first year that we've actually been offering the PR Graduate Certificate program here at Durham College. It used to be a 3-year fast-tracked advanced diploma. So when we switched it up to be a graduate certificate, I sort of thought, what is missing in the marketplace for public relations and communications? And that was something that was very IDEA-centric. So inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility, particularly given that we are based in Ontario with the AODA coming into effect. We as communicators need to know how to be inclusive, diverse, equitable, and accessible in our communications. Our whole notion is to build relationships and communicate messages. So with this program, we ensured when we were building it out that we not only offered courses that spoke to what inclusion, diversity, equity, and accessibility were all about, but we're also putting into practice and giving hands-on experience to students in creating those types of communications across the board, whether it was an accessible press release as a Word document or PDF, whether it was creating an accessible podcast, which they're currently going to be working on, or creating how-to videos that really integrated described described audio perspective and captions, whether open and closed, and really feeding into everything that we are striving to do with, for example, the AODA, but also with inclusion, diversity, and equity in everything that we do and put forth as part of our communications.
So you're going to be ahead of the curve, obviously, with us saying 2025 dates for everything for Ontario to be accessible. The work in progress, it's nice to be ahead, but obviously the course itself will be a work in progress when it comes to some of this. So you mentioned podcasts, you mentioned doing the videos, press releases. Where have you found, and I think back to when we started our AMI TV channel, bringing producers in and trying to kind of help people understand what audio description, what it was about, how to do it, and how to stay creative, because sometimes people felt, well, if I have these rules, these things I have to do, it takes away from some of the things I'd like to show and not necessarily tell, or if I'm telling, how. What have you found to be the most difficult so far, where feedback has come, well, I'm not sure about making this video this way, or make a podcast that's more accessible? If someone's listening, how is that a problem? Or are we looking at more of maybe the YouTube quotient to it, or what have you?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So what we've been doing is incorporating guest speakers, those with lived experience and those who are working in the field, to come speak to the students so that they can better understand what the end user experience is and why it's important for us to have things like captions, whether they are open or closed captions, or having the described video either post-production or integrated, and understanding what the differences are. And then also having those professionals who are actually doing this as their day-to-day living and explaining the nuances and things like that, so that they understand that, yes, there are rules, but there's also ways to work the rules in your favor when you, like you've mentioned, if you're creating a video and you don't want to necessarily say what is showing because that's part of the suspense, if you will, how do we do this in the right manner that still gives off that same effect as somebody who can see what's happening on the screen? From a podcasting perspective, that's been really interesting as the students are picking what they want to talk about on their podcast. And some of them are doing interview style, others are doing some of those Reddit style videos where they're reading off stories from Reddit and things like that. So how do we make them accessible if it's a visual podcast as well as an audio podcast? So transcripts and captions, again, if it's on video and things like that. So having them really practice what they're hearing and what they're learning about, as well as hearing from those who will experience that content differently, if you will. That has been a really big component of the course that the students really love and enjoy. We had a guest speaker come in semester 1, so in this fall, for our diverse, equitable, and inclusive communications course, who is a deafblind communicator. So having her talk to everybody about, this is how I engage with content, and this is why I need it to be accessible just for me to do my job, was really something that took the students back a bit and said, okay, now we're getting it. Now we understand why Matisse is saying we need to do it this way, if you will.
What about memes? I know so many times we've been challenged by, how do we describe, how do we bring a meme? This is what the rest of the world is doing. This is something online people are, that's a great meme about whomever. And when we want to utilize some of those things, and have you dealt with that, or have some solution on that? Is that something definitely that's a challenge for the low vision and blind people that you may wish to be sending information out to, kind of advertising too?
Yeah, we talk about memes, we talk about GIFs, we talk about all of that, and we practice. Nice. So what we'll do is I will put things on slides and say, all right, how would you describe this? And it usually starts off very basic. And then I say, okay, so if you were to close your eyes and I just read out what you said to me, does that give you the same essence of what's actually happening in that GIF or in that meme? And they'll say, well, no. I said, okay, so how can we communicate and write out that information, that passion, if you will, that comes from a GIF or a meme that we're trying to convey in words? And so the students get more practice and they start to figure it out. And It's still not perfect, and I don't think anybody's really 100% perfect at it just yet.
No,
But
no.
it's that practice and that understanding and their willingness to try and do new things. And they apply all this stuff to the social media accounts that they also manage for the PR program itself. So they'll send me like, I want to put this, this reel up or this meme based on the Grammys up. How do I make it accessible? And I'll walk them through it, and then they'll share it. So they're practicing what they are being taught in real time as well.
My senior producer, Matt Agnew, and I were having this discussion yesterday about sound, because you can hear, whether it's a podcast, YouTube video, TV show, a lot of different noise. We get carrying on the show here, ha ha ha, laughing, talking over each other sometimes. And sometimes it's a real struggle. And sometimes you don't know how come it is. Is it just they're talking over each other? It just becomes one blah kind of noise? Or is it something, and so many of us out there may have a hearing challenge or some kind of intellectual challenge that makes it difficult for me to sort out all that noise. This is something that you would encounter dealing with podcasts or dealing with videos. As you built the course and got advisement and had discussions, what area do you feel you had the most information? And when I say that, the most examples, the most advisement, hey, from the vision impaired world, the intellectual, people with intellectual disabilities, hearing impaired, people with motor skills. When it comes to the feedback as you built this course, where did it come mostly from?
It came a lot from the sight loss community, from the hearing loss community, as well as those with intellectual disabilities across the board, because we wanted to create a course and a program that wasn't just tailored to one specific disability, if you will, but really captured everything. So like I said, this is our first year going through it, and there's definitely a lot of learning that we're taking back from it to say, okay, we need to tweak this way, and so on and so forth, to make it a bit more inclusive, just for our students, but also in the end products that they're creating. But going back to our original, our groups, to say, if we tweak this, what do you think? Are we still capturing what we need to capture? And we got a lot of that feedback, particularly for the videos and podcasts component of our multimedia studio course.
Right. Yes.
And then when it came to the accessible document side of things, the students are learning to create accessible Microsoft Word, accessible PowerPoints, and how to present accessibly, and also learning the basics of accessible PDFs, because that can just be a bit of a rabbit hole once you dive into it.
Oh, yeah.
But they're learning how to do this stuff and hearing from, again, those individuals who are experiencing this content in a different way using assistive technology and things like that. It really instills in the students, this is why I need to do this properly and why it's so important. And that's the biggest part for them, is hearing that feedback, not just from their professor who doesn't necessarily use assistive technology, but from those who do, and why it's important for them to actually get access to the information, a human right at the end of the day.
So let's go up the ladder. Program coordinators, people at the college, higher level. When you offered up, this is something we need to add, this is the way this course should develop, what kind of gave the thumbs up? And then, I don't know if you want to separate this, out there in the business world, the feedback that you may get as businesses know they've got to be compliant.
Mm-hmm. So when we were originally discussing, we want to look at creating a graduate certificate program. We knew that's something we wanted to do. When I said, with my background and my experience, we need it to be with an IDEA-centric mindset across the board, they loved it. They said this can really have us stand out from the crowd, but also the fact that we have laws and regulations that are coming into play at this time when we were starting the work for it, that our students will be ahead of the curve, if you will, in actually understanding how to create accessible documents, how to create accessible content, how the AODA, the Human Rights Code, so on and so forth, applies to communications as a whole, so that when they get into the field, they can say, yes, I can create that for you. I know how to do that. And if I don't, I know the resources I need to go to better create that type of content for you, maybe because they don't have as much access to it in class, because again, we only have them for 2 semesters. So we try to jam pack a lot in there, but we provide them with all the resources they also need to do that self-directed learning for things that maybe we touch on in class, but they might want to learn a little bit more about. So it was a lot of working with, our executive dean, Barry Waite, and others in the college to make sure that we were capturing everything that we thought needed to be captured in a program that was saying that we not only believe in IDEA, but we are practicing what we're preaching in IDEA. And so
down the go ahead.
Sorry,
I'll let you finish
no,
that
go
thought.
ahead.
Okay.
I was just going to say it was really great.
Awesome. Now, and I love it. I love the support that way. Do you want to touch anything in the way of businesses that you spoke to, and again, is that too early?
I don't think it's too early. The reason being that, I have the amazing opportunity to speak in front of various groups and businesses about accessibility and communications, and they are scared. They are lost. They're not sure where to start their journey, or how to go about it when they are hiring people. Like, do they know what accessibility is, and so on and so forth. So we're starting to see in a lot of cases, a lot of job postings for people in PR and communications say, do you know how to create accessible content, accessible videos, accessible PDFs, accessible documents, that sort of thing. So my students can now confidently say, yes, I can, and have that. They can show it, not just say like, yeah, sure, I can do that. I have the accessibility checker available, but actually be able to do it as well. So that's, from a business perspective, we are releasing students, if you will, into the workforce that can meet those demands and needs that businesses are desperately seeking.
Because so many of us users out there, whether we're checking things out on a website, watching that video, if I am sitting here, put the TV on, something comes, hey, that's great. That I seem to be able to follow that promo has spoke to me, or that commercial. I think what I find my job to do, but not knowing exactly how I would do it, and being on air here, looking always for feedback from people as to what we're doing, not necessarily getting it. People just, oh yeah, maybe I'll drop them a message later on. Zoom, it's out of their mind. How do you, with this process, next year, the year after, when the college says, so how do you think our graduates are doing? What do you think the effect has been out there being compliant? Are we hearing anything from anyone who says, you know what, I understood your product because the commercial spoke to me, or I understood to come in here because the promo that I heard, the podcast I listened to, spoke right to me and I was able to follow it? How do you kind of quantify it down the road to keep a course like this and to demonstrate the value?
Yeah, I think that comes down to talking with our program advisory committee members, talking to our graduates. So this will be our first cohort that's going to be graduating in the spring and fall. We do have an optional work term, so some will be spring, some will be fall graduates, and also talking to those employers that will take them on, as well as those who are going to be doing work terms and their employers, to say how are they living up to what you were hoping for? What does this look like for you? Where are areas that we could better tailor some of our content, if you will, for your specific needs? Because working in an agency is different than working in-house, which is different than, working at an event and things like that. So making sure that they are prepared across the board and tweaking and tailoring and being open to that feedback. That's the biggest thing. It's one thing to say, we've put out a great product, but if we're not listening to the feedback and tweaking as needed, then, what's the point? We want to continue being better and better and better as we proceed.
And what a thing to do. You have to do it. So you send out, hey, we're looking for this job. Someone have experience creating accessible content, and really not knowing what the heck that is or what it looks like when you find that perfect candidate. Matisse, thank you so much. Really good luck with this. This is so wonderful to hear. Anything else we should know about it? How to get involved? Anything, or businesses? Here's a place people can come and ask questions. How do people, get into the course? Just apply, obviously, to the college.
Yes, so you can apply through OCAS, and you can learn more about our program on the Durham College website. If you search in public relations, that's our course, and you can see what our students are actually up to. Like I mentioned earlier, they do run our social media channels. So we're on Instagram at DC_public relations, and on TikTok at PR@DC. So you can find and see what the students are up to there. And if you have any questions or anything, you can always reach out to myself at the college. My email is matisse.hamel-nelis@durhamcollege.ca. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
Fantastic. That's excellent. And so much fun, especially, you know, I give a fedoras off to those who you had the opportunity to speak to beforehand, get their advisement and how something like this should follow. And I'm sure the excitement they had knowing this kind of course was going to be offered went off the charts. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. We'll chat soon.
Talk to you. You bet. I'll talk to you next month. Matisse Hamel-Nelis is the program coordinator for Durham College's PR graduate certificate course. If you want to get involved, she told you how, and really great. Something we need as we work at making that more compliant and accessible Ontario, Canada, and world. Remember to check out that podcast, ours, that of course we spoke about earlier. You can do that via your favorite platform. Just look for Kelly and Company. If while you're in there, maybe you'll give us a rating and review. We'd really appreciate it when you have some time. The relationship between horse and human has long been acknowledged because all you need to do is watch a movie like The Horse Whisperer to kind of get it. But what does it look like in real life? And how can horses and their environments be used to support people with disabilities? I'd like to welcome Caine from the Canadian Therapeutic Riding Association, or CANTRA for short. Anne, appreciate you being with us. Good day.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
This, for me, Anne, brings a lot back to my childhood. On one of our shows here on the network earlier today, I was talking about my experience as a young blind child riding horse and what it did for me. I'm not a big animal person, so people laugh at the fact that when I finished my rides, I'd give my horse a big hug. So I'd love to know a little bit about, first of all, the celebration of the 45th anniversary with CANTRA. Congratulations on that. Talk to us a little bit about what you do and what the mission is, please, Anne.
Okay, well, the mission is promoting excellence throughout Canada in therapeutic riding and equine assisted therapies. And that's through certification of instructors for an accreditation of programs and education. And so we've been in existence for 45 years, and that's what our conference is focusing on, the excellence of the horse and education and support through the equine partnership with our people. And we are actually a member of an international organization. So CANTRA, Canadian Therapeutic Riding Association, is recognized as the lead in Canada, which is very important because, as you probably know, riding horses and in competing with horses is a risk sport.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very important that people who are involved in this are properly certified. So our certification program is really important. We have a head office for certification in Quebec, and we have an office in Ontario for our insurance, our accreditation, and general membership support. So we have 80 to 85 member centers across the country.
Wow.
Some of them are part-time. Several of them are quite large and go year-round because they have indoor arenas. If you don't have an indoor arena in Canada, it's a little difficult to do it at this time of the year, which is so that's a challenge. But we have our instructor certification goes from basic instructors who would teach a one-on-one, or maybe a BI2 who teaches two students at a time, and it goes through a group instructor that's intermediate, so an intermediate instructor, and then up to a senior level and a coach. And we do work with Equestrian Canada for some of the prerequisites for our instructors to, become certified. Children of 3 can start. They can be referred to a program by their pediatrician, their family doctor, or a therapist. And there is an assessment program where the head instructor at that center would meet with the therapist, appropriate therapist, because you may have someone who has a speech disorder, so a speech language pathologist would be there for the assessment, or it would be a physiotherapist or an occupational therapist. And when I've been at many of these assessments, and it's interesting because some of the parents, when you're asking them, what do you want from this program for your child? Maybe that child has a physical disability. Maybe they have very poor trunk muscles, hypotonia, and they want to see, you're thinking you're going to hear the parents say, I want to see them improve physically. But they usually say, I want my child to have friends, and I want them to have a social life, because many of these young people are really on the margins when it comes to things like birthday parties and sleepovers. Their siblings might be invited, but parents without understanding a child with a disability may be cautious about inviting a child, to a birthday party when they really are out of their depth. So it's really important, and you'll find that most young people who are in therapeutic riding programs, their parents and they will say, this is my second home, this is my second family, because of the support they get.
Wow. What an extension. I know my parents, when I rode for Sari here in London, Ontario years ago.
Oh, yes,
when
I
rode there. Beautiful place. And we had the arena. I remember the sod turning to build it way back when I was a little boy, and getting in there and just spending hours. But as you mentioned about the parents, I know how much it meant to my parents to be able to watch me do the proper instruction, the watching me grow. But I watched them grow, have people they spoke to there, the social avenue of it. We would ride in the summertime and then go swimming afterward. There was so much more, as you mentioned, that it was about than just going and learning how to ride a horse. Now, I noticed the development when I was at Sari, even as a 10-year-old, 14-year-old riding there, as things progressed, as they learned. And you talk 45 years right now that we're speaking of. Over that time for you, and the things you've learned, you've seen over the years, especially in the early days of Sari, there was the concerns of kid gloves, and people who knew about working with children with disabilities and riding would say, you can't. Like you mentioned off the top, there are those dangers. So you mitigate that by having the proper instruction. Can you talk a little bit about some of the things that you feel have helped move in leaps and bounds so that more children with disabilities can be included, and the instruction can be even better?
Yes, and actually I should just mention Sid and Jean Greenberg were very good friends of mine who started Sari, and Sari's named for their daughter who had Down syndrome and died at 14 with a heart condition. So I do know exactly where you've been riding when you were young. But it was beautiful. And Jean and I were on the Ontario Board of Directors and also on the National Board of Directors. And it has come a long way. Obviously, you get started and we learn. And we also always want to keep a cutting edge on education and innovation. But I think the big thing is that the volunteers that you have, because the volunteers have to be well trained. They obviously have to love horses and love people, because they're there to help. And that's where the parent who feels, I don't think I can put my child on a horse. What if they fell off? Well, it's so well regulated. You have a leader for the horse when they start out, and it's always someone who's been around horses. They're very comfortable, and they know, how to handle a horse. And then the sidewalkers, they're there for support, not to hold on to the rider, but to be there as a confidence builder. And I think that's really important. The horse, of course, is, people always ask, what breed of horse do you use? Well, we don't want to single out a certain breed, because every breed may have like people say, well, that horse is always very calm and I wouldn't use this horse. But it's about the individual horse. It's like people. We all have our
personalities.
Yes. And horses do too. So,
yes, you bet.
So we want a laid back horse. We want a horse that's not going to be skittish, because you may have a child who's on the autism spectrum or an adult, and, there may be sudden noises, and the horse just, learns to cope with that. However, having said that, we're very aware of our horses and how we're going to maintain them, not just physically, but also their mental health. So if, the people who are working with the horses are so sensitive to know if the horses maybe had enough that week, maybe they need to just get out in the field and run. We're very, very careful of our horses, and people will sometimes use the phrase, well, we use horses. Well, we don't use horses. We partner with horses. Horses are our facilitators. Horses are the backbone of our program, really, and along with the volunteers. As you can imagine, for one small child of 3 years old, that's going to take 3 volunteers. So there's a very high ratio of volunteers. And we do find that after COVID, that has been quite a challenge for many of our programs, because the whole demographic of society has changed since COVID. So it is difficult getting volunteers right now.
We used to rely so much on those sidewalkers, the people that worked with us, that were there just to support. And I remember Jean, watching her growth, because a lot of that worried about kids. Are we doing the right thing? We know how much our daughter loved what this meant. And I think that was the joy she had in it. And she would express this, I know, to my parents, that it is incredible every day, every hour that kids were out there watching them enjoy. So we fast forward to now, and let's talk about
Can I just make a comment on just on what you made about your parents? I have to say, so many of the parents say, this is my therapy hour as well, where my rider is on because you were right. So many of the parents, they work in isolation. They're dealing with a child with a special need. Maybe they have other siblings, and, it's busy being a mother, particularly, they're with them in the day, and when they can share with somebody else. And many of the parents have said, my child doesn't have the same disability as the other mother I'm sitting with, when we're watching through the viewing room and watching them riding. But just when they talk about a problem, there's an empathy there, because they understand one another. Sorry.
Yes, the shared. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'd get mad when I'd come back in and my parents had been too busy being chatty, and not when hey, did you see this? Did you see? Oh yeah. We only have a few minutes, and I do want to cover off some of the things that we should know, including people getting involved, because, we can go on. I know we can sit here and talk, and there's so much benefit, and there's so much out there that just makes me sit back and say, wow, what opportunities, including even for seniors out there for therapeutic riding. Anything we should touch on before I let you go?
Well, yes, it's not just children, of course. Some of our children have been in the program and they're adults now, and many of the programs have senior programs too. Now, not everybody, it's not maybe beneficial or safe for some people with certain disabilities to be riding the horse, but there are a lot of on-ground activities too. So EAL, which is equine assisted learning, you do that to build teamwork, build your own personal growth, and you can do that with working with a horse on the ground. Also, many of our programs have equine facilitated wellness, which is a mental health program. And again, you've heard of psychologists who hit a brick wall with their client, and then they bring their dog into the office, and all of a sudden the person's talking to the dog. That's the same thing with a horse. But of course, the impact of a horse, because a 1,000-pound animal for a child or an adult on it, yeah, we're not bringing them into the office.
No,
but if you're on them, there's that sense of empowerment. I'm sure you felt that.
Oh,
you take
bet.
up the reins, and it doesn't matter if you have a leader. You feel you're in charge of that horse. So our conference is focusing on a wide range of those things, bringing information about mounting and dismounting, about setting goals, assessing the rider and setting goals for achievement when they're on the horse, saddle fitting, because the horse, again, each horse has its own saddle. People wonder, well, why is this horse being nippy? Well, maybe something's hurting. And a horse, like we don't all wear the same piece of clothing. We're all different sizes and heights and everything. So it's the same with a horse. So that we have to remember too. We do have life skills programs. So young people who are in high school who have a disability don't graduate till they're 21. So often the going out to a farm and learning transferable life skills like weighing out the feed for the horses means you can use that in the kitchen, helping with baking and things. There are different things you can do. Grooming, being around a horse is just amazing. Can I just read something? Have I got time? It's very short.
I got about 2 minutes for you. You go ahead.
Okay. Well, this is one of our riders. She's been since she was 4 and she's in her 20s now. Thank you. This is for horses. Dear horses, thank you for all you do for us. Thank you for allowing us to ride you. It feels pretty awesome. You make us feel tall and proud. You're so friendly to be around. You are smart and curious. It's nice for people like me. When I groom you, make your food and clean your stall, it gives me something to do for you in return. When you put your head down and let me pet you, when you breathe warm air on me, I feel loved inside. Sunrise horses, thank you for all the support you give us and the way you make us feel. You're pretty special. That's from Haley. She walks with a walker and she sits on her walker and mucks out stalls. She whips around the farm. She's had a walker ever since she was little, but she rides a horse. And when she gets up there, it's a whole different world for her.
And good luck with the conference. What a beautiful letter from Haley. Thank you, Haley, because I can associate, and it reminds me of so much of my time with horses. Thanks for being on the program. Good luck with everything. Let's see if we can send some people your way, because I can't speak any higher about the benefits of riding and the work that you guys are doing for all of us. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you so much for having us.
And Caine for being on the program with us today. And the idea of having a residence too, by the way, makes so much sense. So you can look into all of that as people who have come to love Sunrise and consider it home and riding horses. If you want to support the Sunrise Therapeutic Riding and Learning Center or learn just more overall, please visit sunrise-therapeutic.ca. Email us at kellyco@ami.ca, folks, and call us at 1-866-509-4545. On tomorrow's program, art consultant Christine Malik discusses the variety of audio descriptive options that are out there we can check out, and what different types and what makes them so interesting. As of course, approaches to accessibility. And Chef Mary Mamelidi is here. She has the top 5 fiber items for us to add to our carts right now. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Fedora's off to you, folks.
Thanks for tuning in to Kelly and Company. Follow us on all social media, and don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for more.